Well, hello everyone. Here, right here, I'm talking about right here, but talking about salary though, and a lot of times it sure seems that way that when we do talking about budgeting and talking about taxes, right? And a lot of times I was also thinking too that if I want to go ahead and talk about, yeah, that whenever somebody says welcome, a lot of times, and what does that usually mean? Whenever somebody says welcome, and like let's just say that if welcome's going to be the first thing that you're going to hear whenever it comes to whenever it comes to sign in or something like that, but welcome. But really though, it's like that when we do think about that a lot of times, that you're always thinking too is that whenever it comes to taking care of your bills, and a lot of times, and you want to know too is that for $1 longer. So it's like whenever I was working on this document right here and putting this together right here, and I was also thinking too, everybody, that I put right on here on my I put it right here on the top right here for twin 2, and twin 2. Well, what does twin 2 pretty much mean? I'm like, that's twin 2 is that the year, right? The twin 2, that's the year right here. And so it's like if you want to go ahead and do like a logo design of that, what exactly does that mean if you were to do that? And it's like, so like let's just say that for March, for after the New Year or something like that. But it's like, for twin 2 right here, like, so you got right here for 22 for the year. But it sure seems that way that every time we think about the budgeting, though, that it's like, you would maybe look at your pay stub like that, toward that whenever you first start working on something, that what's the one thing that you're gonna maybe be thinking about a lot of times is a salary, right? To where that if everybody liked what you were doing and for how you were, how the progress was going, that for sure that they would offer you maybe $1 longer tip or something like that, or like this. So so a lot of these calculations right here. So every time you do think about this, and you're always want to know too that you especially like on the tax receipts, or maybe if it's anything on like any sorts of statements, right? Any sorts of paperwork, right? And one thing that I was thinking about when I was working on this document right here was actually about a transcript. So like let's just say if you were to be configuring the math at your own time and thinking as toward, okay, if that's really the proper way of how to do the math, right? You go ahead and put $300 plus, $500 minus, and then $200 plus right here. So what does all that really mean right there? And if you were to actually do the math right here, what does that mean? And whenever you put, if you highlight this in green right here for $200, and then minus the 500. So what exactly does that necessarily mean? I have right here for loan right here for 52,788.49. So it's like, so really, are you really more than welcome to explain your progress and all that right there? So a lot of times, that could really mean a lot of things, right? But it sure seems that way, that every time we do think about that, and you're wanting to know too that so if you were to put on here for like $500 minus, but then longer right here. So let's just say that if you were working a job, and let's just say that this company was actually asking you to work a little bit longer, just because that they need you to work a little bit longer than your actual scheduled shift, or it could also, I'm like, so so if you were to put on here longer right here, so really, what does that really mean? If you were to put on a tax transcript or anything that you were working on, if you were to put longer right there, and if you were to put on there that longer. So if you were to put right there on here, like if you were to highlight that for longer right here. So if you were to put longer right here, what exactly does that mean whenever you say longer? And So let's just say that if you were to put longer right here, longer or shorter, and like everybody else would say is that, I know, I'm like, yeah, so it's like, so a lot of times it's like you really don't know, like everybody else would say, is toward if you would actually put that on a transcript, and I don't even think that it's really going to be acceptable on a transcript, just knowing that whenever you do look at a transcript a lot of times, whenever you do look at a transcript, that what you're basically are already like, yeah, about is toward if you are going to be working a job for sure, that if you're going to be working a job, that what they actually are looking for is that your wages and other source of earnings that you earned while you were working all that. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, so if you would actually do the math right here for $300 more or longer and $500, so yeah, if you would actually do the calculations right here of doing the actual math right here, you're always wondering to where that what does that usually mean if the work in progress does push far and beyond. So like, let's just say that if you were to put on here, like, yeah, for a loan right here, but if you would actually put on here, beyond. So what does that mean? If you were to actually say that on a transcript, and let's just say that if you were to put, yeah, for like a parentheses or something like that, and then put markings right here, and maybe like on the far right here, you were to push beyond, yeah, something like 150 right here, 0.00. So if you were to put that on a transcript, and like everybody else would say, is toward it really, what does that really mean if you were to actually do that? If you would actually print out a transcript, and let's just say that, whenever you were putting this transcript together, what you were doing was that you were putting the information together, like during that time of the year that you were going to school, or during that time of the year that you were actually working a job, or during that time of the year that you were actually doing volunteer type work or something like that, or maybe that, other services that where you were making a decent amount of income, right? And so it's like, so every time you do think about that, you're always thinking as toward it, that, yeah, whenever you think about that $300 plus and maybe minus 500, for longer, and maybe for $200 plus. So it's like, yeah, every time you do think about that, and you're thinking as toward, okay, yeah, that whenever you were working, though, that you were working a late, yeah, you were working a later shift. So every time you think about that, and you're wondering to where, how do you think that it would be worded on a transcript? Would that maybe be calculated by hours? And let's just say that for 15 hours that you were working on a job, 15 hours. So yeah, it's 15 hours, and maybe for 1520 or something like that. So let's just say that if you were to actually write that on a paper, just saying this toward if you're going to be working a full-time job, and if you were to write that on here, 15 to 20 hours, and if you were to say that this right here was your salary right here, not everybody's going to understand that completely, and so that's why it sure seems that way, that when we do think about that, and 102 is toward it, that yeah, that, you actually, this right here was supposed to be a goal, right? It's supposed to be like a goal or something, but the way we think about that in 102 is that, yeah, how do we calculate that, just knowing that that all the work that you were doing, but let's just say that somebody asked you that, well, no, you're not done yet. We're asking you if you can go ahead and work on this right here, or we're going to go ahead and interrupt at your normal scheduled time or something like that. So like everybody else would say, is if your work is not done yet, for sure, that how do you think that would need to be typed, or rendered onto a Word document or an Excel file? And it's like, so if you were to actually write that like on a document right here for 300 plus longer and $500 minus right here. So it sure seems that way that every time we do think about that, and you're always want to know too. You're like, yeah, questions and answers, and that's another thing too, is that to where somebody's going to be asking you a question a lot of times, it's like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, questions and answers a lot of times. So it's like, yeah, so a lot of times it's like, you're always want to know too that this should only take about 5 or 10 minutes of your time just to be able to answer a few questions. But if we're talking about maybe 50 questions or something like that, 50 questions at a time. 50 questions at a time. And your 102 is toward it, that if you were to actually be including something like this on a resume or even on a cover letter or something like that, really not everybody's really going to understand what all this is right here. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that you go ahead and include maybe something like a cover letter toward that on that cover letter you can include like a little scenario about including 50 questions about in case if you may be wondering or something like that. So in case if you, like everybody else would even want to know too, that every time I do think about that and want to know too, that in case if you're wondering about that, in case if you're about to ask what this is right here, and so yeah, that's what I've been able to come up with right there. But it sure seems that way, that every time you do try to put something like that together right there, and it sure seems that way, that yeah, it's not really simple, but on the other hand, that every time we do think about that, and you're always thinking as toward it, that yeah, every time you want to have a conversation about stuff like this, it seems like that that during the interview that you were not asked just 1 or 3 questions, you were asked maybe 10 or more questions. And that is why it seems like a lot of times that every time you do think about that, and you're always want to know too, that I'm sorry to be asking you so many questions, but I'm just wondering, just because it comes to my mind or something like that, or something that that kind of gives me the idea of something I was trying to work on from earlier or something like that. But come on now, that every time I think about that, and I'm always thinking as to where that if we're talking about for 2,257 right here, and like everybody else would say is to where especially if you're the oldest, then maybe that you would be qualified to answer a few of these questions. And then that's one thing that I got a lot of times, that whenever you're going to be filling out any sort of a document, right, and 102 is toward the oldest. If you're the oldest of the family, of the household, like anybody say that if you're the oldest of the family, of the household, then for sure, you could be qualified to answer a few questions on this form right here that includes about how much income, about how much money of the whole household, like what is the salary of benefits. And so like let's just say that, like everybody else would say, is toward it if you're going to be old, the oldest member of the household, then maybe you can answer maybe a few of these questions right here. But still, but it's like every time you do think about that, you're always want to know too that $1 longer and $300 for longer right here. So it's like so whenever you first start working on something, it seems like if the company likes what they see right here, for sure, that that if you've explained very well with what you come up with right here, and people will say is toward that for I like it, for sure. If you like what you see right here, that's explained right here in maybe a few sentences right here, $300 longer, so for sure, if it's going to include salary pay or something like that, if you like if you like the idea of this, or if you like the idea of that or something like that. But still, every time I think about that, I keep thinking too, is toward it, yeah, that's not the full story right there. That's not the, that's not the full detail right here. Yeah, this is not, that is correct. That is not, this is not the full, that's not the full story. Yeah, it's not the full, not, the full, yeah, it's not the full story of what needs to be taken care of. So it's like, so yeah, every time you look at a transcript or so, and you're thinking too, that I'm like, yeah, but still, it's like every time you do think about that, and you're always wanting to know too that yeah, that it all started out with that with what does this mean right here for 2257 right here, and then of course on a so yeah, whenever I was working on this document right here, I was actually trying to get some ideas together about what I wanted to use, and also that that the information that you would read on a transcript, but then also that if you were to come up with any amounts as to where that this is how much, I'm like, yeah, for how much of the household income was, but still, if you were to set a goal though, but still, yeah, whenever I was thinking about this, I was actually thinking about as to where that whenever it comes to income, right? But talking about for like a credit card, why is it that we see more, or why is it that we see less on a credit card, and knowing about that check? So yeah. So every time you do think about this, and you're always 102 is toward it, that what are the chances? I'm like, oh yeah, whenever it comes to income, no, but really though that when we do think about income, is that every time we do think about a credit card for sure, and every time, but yeah, the idea that I thought about was talking about loans and all that, but it sure seems that way that every time we do think about income, though, that we're going to maybe be asking about is toward the 15 to 20 hours a week, and then maybe at the $300 plus and $500 minus, and so really that's not really the proper way of how to do the math. But like, let's just say that if you can actually configure this math problem right here into like a maybe like a any source of scenario or something like that, yeah, if you're more than welcome to do the math like that, but still, can you explain a little bit more about how you were able to configure that? But anyway, but that's the way I think about it. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone.